We are ready. I agree. God is so for us. He is so with us, and He's
Mm,
so ready to do mighty things in our lives. You know, we never need to be couch potatoes sitting around watching TV. Not
mm,
watching TV is bad, but we've got a life to live and give, and
mm.
so it's different. So I'm here with Patrick Backus. Uh, Patrick is in California, and so
Yes.
had to work out this time thing and all that. And on my second mission to Africa, it ended up I was going alone to mostly Uganda, and there was some miracle provision in working like a month, 3 weeks before I went. Uh, it was provided for Patrick to come, and we saw some crazy things. But when I say that, I mean some good things.
Mm.
Great deliverance and sharing. And so Patrick has just got back from Uganda just a few weeks ago, and he had a team of how many people did you have?
There was 20 students with
20
me.
students. You had the plane to yourself practically. So we really want to hear what Patrick has to say and his heart, and maybe he'll be sharing about Bethel, obviously about this trip, some of the things he's seen. And so I need to get quiet. Patrick, however you want to start this, I would like to
Mm.
get it over you, and maybe you can tell you a little bit of your story. I think you kind of did before, but it's been a while since people have seen you, like how you came to Bethel or whatever's on your heart. I mean, we want to hear it all. So, brother, just pour it out
Yeah,
to us. So,
this
brother,
sounds great. Thank you, FC. Yeah, FC, it's a privilege and an honor to be here with you. I still remember when I first heard your Facebook Live, and it would have been like 2016 or 17. I think 2017. And I was getting home from work late one night. I was working at an Italian restaurant, and my mom was listening to you in the living room. And I was taking my shoes off, and I just spent a couple extra minutes taking my shoes off because I was so caught by what you were saying. And I knew that this is a man of the spirit. This is someone I want to get to know, someone I want to learn from. And so to be on your show years later, it's a real treat. I remember shortly after hearing you sneakily on the Facebook Live, I got to invite you out to Illinois, and that's when our relationship began. And then we had two trips to Africa, one with a bunch of people. I think there was 12 of us, and then the other one, you and me. And now I just got back from my fourth trip there. And as you said, I got to take 20 students, um, 20 students in the ministry school that I'm at. Every March, the students go out all over the world. There was almost 15,000 or 1,500 people deployed in the school this year between first, second, and third year. And it was phenomenal. It was the greatest trip yet, FC. They keep getting better. The doors that got open, the opportunities that he presented, and the students that I got to bring. Um, Initially, I only wanted to take 12 students because I didn't know if I would have enough for them to do. But taking 20 was just the right amount. We had someone from Honduras, from the Netherlands, six people from Germany, Italy, um, Colombia, if I didn't say that one already, and maybe one other spot that I can't think of. I think there were six different nations represented on our trip. And just the way that the team came together with one vision and one heart and one mission to love the Lord and to love the people that were in front of them, we had a amazing time. And it was my first time leading a trip like this. And I'm really grateful for people on the Ugandan side that helped me. There was an organization called Jenga that I was connected with from somebody in Bethel who did his third year out there years ago. And when he found out that I was going to Uganda, he asked if I could visit them because that's where his heart's there. And he usually takes a trip there every year. But they just had their first child, him and his wife. So he wasn't going this year. And then FC, they made it so easy for me. I'm so grateful. They helped plan out our drivers, our food, our accommodations. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have them with us and if I didn't have the Lord directing and guiding, because He made it very clear the things to say yes to, the things to say no to. And it was a great time. We landed there. Let me tell you what happened the first day. I'll tell you a uh-oh story, kind of, but it worked out all right. So we have many people. We have 20 students plus me, 21. and everybody's bringing in an extra luggage, an extra suitcase with clothes in it to donate to some people there. And so we arranged that we would have a taxi take our luggage, and then the bus would take us and some luggage. And so in Africa, and as African style is, it doesn't always go as planned, and a lot of things can happen. um, but the taxi driver that we had hired, I'm really glad that my students and myself didn't see this happen. Um, but we were in the bus driving. The taxi was ahead of us with our luggage, and then with a security guy from the organization that we know. And the taxi actually hit somebody on a motorbike. Um, and the people, they ended up being okay, but he hit an adult, and there was a child on the bike, and they ended up going to the hospital. They were released later with no injuries. Um, but what happened was the driver of the taxi, he ended up fleeing the taxi after he hit them. And so he ran through the town. People in the town chased him. They caught him. They beat him up. And then they wanted to burn all of our luggage. They wanted to burn the whole taxi. They ended up stoning the taxi with one of our contacts, our security, in there. And he's pleading with them, like, do not burn it. We need to save this stuff. Like, you can do whatever you want to the car, but please don't destroy it. Eventually, the cops came. They caught the taxi driver, and then they arrested our security guy. We got him out eventually of prison or jail with some money exchanged. And that was the start of our trip. We show up at the hotel. I'm like, where's everybody's bags? And then they tell me the story. So that's how it began. But that was really the worst part of it, I think. And we were sheltered from it. Like, nothing bad happened to us. Nothing bad happened to our luggage. Our security guy was all right. And so the trip began. It was amazing. We got to, and feel free to stop and ask questions at any point, but I'm just going to kind of run through some things. As soon as we got there, we were in Mbale, northern region, and there's been many prophetic words about Mbale and a great African revival starting there, which I was unaware of until recently. But we got to speak into the lives of many ministers there and many leaders in the area. There's a new house of prayer being built. It's a couple $1 million project, and we got to be with the leaders of that and just minister to them. And so the first half of our trip was really ministering to God's ministers, as well as going out in the streets and the slums and doing outreach there. But it was a great way for our team to bond together, for us to ease into Africa living, to ease into African culture. Because, FC, I prepared them for the worst. I feel like I prepared them to run out of water, to run out of electricity. You might be eating bugs. Like, I don't know what's going to happen on this trip, but just so you know, this is a reality. And we had it so good. They were so spoiled. The electricity never really went out. There was always water for a shower. No electrocution in the showers. I remember that in Kenya with you. A great way to wake up every day. But man, we had a lot of fun. The joy of the Lord was definitely our strength because it's hotter than we're used to. It's difficult conditions. Like some of the girls, 2 of them were sharing a room, and it reeked of cigarettes, and then it flooded in the middle of the night. But let me tell you, their attitude was so good. I didn't hear them complain once. They knew that it wasn't about them on the mission. It was about the people that they get to serve and the people that they get to love. And the Lord, I believe, really just honored that. And everybody on the mission was stretched. Everybody was given opportunity. The second day that we were there, we were invited to 5 different churches. And so we had 5 different student preachers go out and take ministry teams with them that got to deliver words of knowledge. And the words of knowledge group, it was funny. They had no preparation from the speaker. They didn't know if they were going to be doing it, but near the end of his message, he's like, and now my team's going to come up and they're going to give words of knowledge. And they're like, what are we doing? Some of them hadn't done that before. They hadn't released a prophetic word publicly. They haven't released words of knowledge publicly, but they went up there and they did it, and God showed up. I received word that every word was accurate. Every word was correct. Many healings took place because of that. Much peace and grace was released on the people through the words. And then other groups would minister healing and that sort of thing. Let me see. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit. and share a couple testimonies as well. The last day of the crusade, we had a 4-day crusade, and it was in an area where they have a lot of witchcraft, a lot of idols, just a lot of things that aren't Christ-like. And so we were there and preaching the gospel, and I think we saw at least 250, 300 Muslims come to Christ over the 4 nights that we were there. And the second night was actually rained out. A huge storm came in. We never really started the crusade, but it was a lot of fun. So the storm came in and it's downpouring rain, and they're shutting down the stage, and our team's dancing in the rain with the locals. Hundreds of people just in a big circle playing games together, dancing together, praising the Lord together, chasing each other around in these little games that they played. And I think it was honestly a huge part of the trip, because there was a lot of people watching us in the background to see how we would react in maybe a time of adversity, or maybe a time where it doesn't go as planned. And we weren't there to do the crusade, we were there to love them. And so it was a real opportunity to connect with the locals in a way that we didn't get to if we're on stage the whole time or ministering the whole time. And so I believe the rain day, the mess up day, the day where it didn't go as planned, ended up being a great opportunity to sow seeds into what God wanted to do the rest of the time. Because the next day we had at least 50 people come to Christ at the initial altar call, and then there was 3 more waves of Muslims that would come up. They just kept coming up to the stage, wanting to confess Christ as Lord, wanting to be free from the demonic influence that they know is attacking them, because they're so aware of the spiritual realm over there. They're so aware of it. Like, there's no atheists. They all believe in something. They'll worship a tree. If there's a tree there that people worship, it's just what they do. And so then when the gospel is preached and when Jesus Christ is shared, they really want it. And so there was 3 waves of Muslims the next day, beyond the initial 60 so people that confessed Christ as Lord. And amongst all that, one of our students, he was ministering with a female on our team, and he really wanted to see blind eyes open. That was like one of his strong desires on the trips, one of the really things he wanted to see God move in. And it was the last day of the crusade. And Saturday, we had another day of church Sunday, and then when we were done, we were leaving at the end of Monday, early Tuesday morning. And so this mom, she brings up her child after the crusade during ministry time. And the child was 3 or 4 years old. I think there's actually video of it on my Facebook. But the child, since it was 3 or 4 months old, went blind. And it's in this guy's line that had been really wanting to see eyes open up. And so this child's been blind for at least 3 years. And within 5 to 10 minutes, they were jumping around and praising God because the baby could see. And the way they found out that it could see was, first, its eyes weren't even like open. One of the eyes wasn't open at all. But as they ministered, it began to open and be clear. And then they would hold a pen in front of the baby, and it would grab the pen. It would grab the pen. It would grab the pen. And so that was how they tested it. And then the mom testified that really, since it was very, very, very young, it had not been able to see, and God opened up the eyes. So that was a big celebration. I know there was a leg that was paralyzed that was healed. There was a person who was deaf and mute, and God allowed them to speak and hear. When we were in the slums earlier on in the trip, there was some.
Brother, that was like the first trip where you were leading people into operating the Spirit, speaking in tongues, and that lady started speaking in tongues, but she was mute. She had never spoken before. So
yes,
yeah, cool.
That was
Go
wild.
ahead.
And then also that reminds me, there was a time, because we did so much, there were so many activities and things that went on this trip. Like, it was a full-on missions trip. But there was one time when there was a women's conference and a men's conference. And at the women's conference, they ended up splitting up into groups. And they weren't even teaching on speaking in tongues. But FC, the Spirit fell. And many women and young women, it was a young adult group, spoke in tongues for the first time. I don't even remember what they were preaching on or teaching on. But that's what God wanted to do there. And it was really cool, because on my mission trips, that's usually something we go after, and we want to train them and equip them in. And the Lord just kind of did it sovereignly with this probably 15, 20 women and a small breakout group. They began to speak in tongues for the first time. So that was really cool. But yeah, I was talking about the slums. And actually, before the slums, I'll go to the hospital because here's another cool testimony. The hospital day, I think, was the toughest day that we had because we had spent a couple days ministering to leaders, and this was one of our first times out in the community, and they wanted us to go to the local hospital in Mbale. And it's a place, I don't know how best to describe it, but a very open floor plan, some beds, and then just people laying everywhere on the beds or on the floor. And some people are there for months trying to get money. There'll be one doctor for 80 people. There's no nurses. If anybody's going to administer food or medicine to you, it has to be like a family member or a relative. There's no hospital staff that does it. And so these people are just in very rough conditions. And our team went out, and like our hope and our anticipation was like, let's clear the hospital out. That was our vision. Let's get everybody healed. Let's get everybody saved. And we saw some healings. Like there was a guy that was shot that I got to pray for, and his pain was gone. There was another one in a car accident where his pain left. But there was a lot more people that didn't receive the deliverance or the healing that we were hoping for at that time. But we did see some come to Christ, which was really great because there's a lot of Muslims in that region. But one thing that's neat is a couple days later, beyond the hospital, we were doing our crusade, and all of a sudden a car pulls up, and there's no cars out there except for our car. And like you just don't see cars where we were. It's a very remote area. And it turns out it was a lady from the hospital. She was a Muslim. And I don't know if anybody from our team prayed for her at the hospital or not. I'm not sure. But I do know that she noticed what we were doing and she wanted to receive Christ. And so she didn't receive Christ at the hospital. She didn't receive healing at the hospital. But a couple days later, she drove hours to the crusade. She found out who we were, what we were doing, where we were going to be, and she gave her life to Christ. And then she was healed. And so that was really cool just to see her hunger for God. And it gave us hope that the hospital wasn't a wasted day. Because sure, God did stuff, but it wasn't maybe what we were expecting to see. The next day after the hospital, we were in the slums. And this is the worst slum in Uganda. I think it's called Namatumba. But the people that live there, it's a tribe, and they used to believe that they owned every cow on the earth. That was what they believed. And so if they saw somebody else with a cow, they would take their gun and they would kill them. Like, they're a very hated group, a very looked down on group. They'll be scavenging all day just to find rice, a piece of rice on the ground, a grain of something that they can eat. And so we were in there and we were ministering at a children's center. And this is a center that just takes in impoverished children. They really take in the worst of the worst because the parents are trying to survive, so the baby gets neglected. And the staff there will go out into the town, find out who they can bring in, and house them for the day, feed them for the day, give them nourishment, take them to the hospital if they need it. And so they're doing an amazing work. While we were there, I felt the love of God, I think, in a way I've never felt before, never experienced before. It was truly special. And so we got to minister to the staff. And this is a very interesting testimony. But at the end of our time there, there was an opportunity to pray for the nurse because she was busy earlier in the day taking care of children. And so me and two other girls on our trip went up to pray for the nurse. And as we did, the nurse also mentioned that there was a child in the ICU, and can we pray for this child? And so we said yes, obviously. One of the girls in our team, she prayed first for the nurse that no more children in her care would die, would pass away, and then also for the child in the hospital, that it would be a turning point in that child's life and that it would just get better from this point on. And so the next day, so we left there. We're getting ready to go on to the next part of our trip, go to the crusade grounds. And the guy that we're with, who's the leader of this organization, his phone just keeps ringing during lunch. It keeps ringing. He picks it up. And then he gathers our team shortly after, and he says, hey, they're the child in the ICU that you guys prayed for from a distance. We weren't with the child. it was actually in a 3-day coma, and it had meningitis is what it was sick with. And he said in the nighttime it died. The child passed away, and they wrapped it in a body bag, confirmed dead. The mother was there to collect the baby and inform the family members of what had happened. And they said and that's really interesting, they said about 20 minutes after the child passed away, that they noticed it was alive again. And so they considered it 100% a resurrection. Many Muslim leaders from the area came to check out the story of this child. And FC, it's hard to say, but the child, I found out recently, 4 days later, ended up passing away again. It passed away from medical care complications and dehydration. And so it was a great victory, but then also like a very heartbreaking thing that happened. But I know God did something during that time that baby was alive. The doctors there, they said they don't make mistakes. Like, people don't raise from the dead. And so many Muslim leaders, since that has taken place, have come to talk to the mom, and they've come to talk to the leaders in the center to find out what happened and who is Jesus, and to find out about this miracle. And so that's still being circulated throughout that slum right now, throughout that village. And it hurts that the child's not alive, but we still celebrate what God did, and I believe that baby's at peace now, and I will see it again, which is amazing. Jafar was his name. And then another testimony, right before we were leaving Uganda, and then after this, you can ask any questions that you want or whatever. I've been talking for a bit, just things are coming back to my mind. But before leaving from Uganda, one of our good friends and our drivers on the first half of the trip, he reached out to me, and he let me know, actually before this happened, while we were with him randomly driving in the car, I feel like I really got a prophetic word for him that he's a great father. And so I'm giving him this prophetic word, and then halfway through it, I'm realizing I don't actually know if he has any kids or not. And so I asked him if he had any kids, and he said no. But it's a desire that him and his wife have. And so I just continue to speak into the father that he's going to be, physically, and then also the father that he is in the spirit, because he's a great leader and a great man of God, that's discipling others. And so we're about to board our plane and get ready to come back to the States. Our 2-week trip is over, and he messages me and he says, "Hey brother, can you pray for me? Can you pray for my wife? She was 11 weeks pregnant, and a couple days ago she felt a lot of pain in her stomach, and she was bleeding, and she had a miscarriage. And so can you just pray, because this really hurts?" And so I shared that info with a couple members of the team that knew him very well. That's the ones that he wanted to know at the time. It's okay to share this now with everybody. But they prayed, and resurrection wasn't even like a theme of the prayer. It was more of a comfort, and God just take care of his heart and his wife's heart. And so I texted him a week later after being back in the States just to check in and see how he's doing. It was probably a week ago now. It was, yeah, because we got back the 28th. And I messaged him, and he responds back. He says, "Brother, we've been touched by the hand of God. My wife started to experience pain in her stomach again. And so we went back to the hospital to see what was going on. And they did the ultrasounds and the tests, and they said there's a live baby in her womb who is 10 weeks. It's been there for 10 weeks. And the sac that was broken, he has all the scans, all the photos, all the doctor reports saying this baby has been aborted to saying this baby is alive and at 10 weeks old now. And so I don't know how God did it, but he just reversed that 1 week of death in the womb, and put the baby back. And so she is healthy and well. They said there's nothing wrong with the child. There's nothing wrong with the wife. And so that was very encouraging to hear a week after being back in the States. So we do celebrate that and what God did. But it was very interesting. There was 2 different resurrection types that we weren't really present physically for any of them. But the prayers, they still had power. They still had authority. And so I don't know if you want to pop in with any comments or questions, FC, or what's brewing in your heart. But those are some of the main things I think I wanted to share.
What did you see in the way of provision? Did anybody come down to get there? Did you come down to the wire and some people didn't have the money? I mean, there's no way
Yes,
I don't have the money. So what kind of things did you see in provision that way?
definitely. Yeah, so we had 20 students that came with us. Initially, there was going to be 25. Two dropped out like right away within before anything even happened, just saying we made a mistake. We're not supposed to go on this trip. And so, but a couple other students like got $1,200 donation randomly that they didn't know about. They don't know who it came from. Another one got like $150 randomly that sparked faith that the rest would come in. And so we had 20 students. That there was $56,000 raised for this trip. And we had students from an online school. So 4 students flew in on their own and then met us either in Turkey or some flew to California and met us and then got there. But many students were stretched financially to see God come through. There was a couple, I think, $1,000 plus testimonies. I don't remember them exactly because it was a long time ago in my mind. But yes, nobody up front had the money for this trip, and it was one of the more expensive ones that they could pick. So it was a walk of faith when they decided to pick the Uganda trip.
There is so much here. I thought of the rain. I thought of the rain we had. Those cockroaches came up, and you remember we woke up in the night trying
I
to
remember that. Oh yeah.
oh, and then the white ants coming out in the rain, and then we
Mm-hmm.
peanut butter ants. Well, actually, they tasted like peanut butter, but whatever. But did you contact? I'm just curious whether you did or didn't. The hospital, like after, like maybe after you left or something. Was there any reports they said, yeah, this person, at that time maybe wasn't delivered, but after you left, they had a miraculous healing or a
um, no contact. There's not. It's much different there. Like they have so many patients to take care of. They probably won't even know who we prayed for. But the organization that's there, they go in there all the time, and they're bringing teams in there all the time. And so I'm sure things definitely took place after the fact, but we haven't heard any reports from the hospital specifically. No.
that doesn't mean things were hacked because I know
Yeah.
I went to Pakistan. There was so many people asking for babies. They've tried
Mm,
for years, and I remember about 9 months later, one of the teams I was with, or the ministries over there, there was so many reports that came in that people were having babies.
wow. That's amazing.
Let's see. So what? So you've been at Bethel. Can you give us a little overview of your time at Bethel that you've had and how that progressed? Because I know the desire of your heart was to be with a certain minister, and God opened some doors there. And also, maybe so that we could continue on the mission. And if something pops in
Hmm.
your mind you want to relate, please just relate it. But yeah, I know there was quite a few things that happened with you going to California and all. So maybe you want to share some pieces of that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm in California now, in Redding, California, and I moved here in 2019. Before moving here, I was living in upstate New York with a couple friends and just really walking with God and working at a restaurant and knew I was supposed to be there but wasn't sure what was next. He made it very clear just through prayer and asking God for guidance on what was next in my life that I was to come here for a ministry school. And so I didn't really know much about Bethel or Bill Johnson or Chris Valentin or anything that they did, but I just knew I was supposed to come. And so I came and checked out a conference just to get my feet wet a little bit out here before fully committing and fully moving. And then after that conference, I quickly applied and was accepted to the school. And I thought I would do all 3 years of school, which was nice to know. The first 2 years are more learning. I mean, we're always learning, but the third year is a mentorship and more actively applying what you're learning and what God's been teaching. And so each year has been fantastic. I feel like each year gets better than the last year. I did graduate last year, right around this time. The first week of May is when graduation is. And I'm still here. I'm working right now for a ministry, Igniting Hope Ministries, with Steve and Wendy Backlund. They are the leaders of that. and it's been a phenomenal time. Steve, he has much favor in the church community, and he loves to share that favor with his students, with his interns, with his staff. And so it's been a great growing opportunity for me, getting to meet people, getting to travel with him, getting to learn about my beliefs and what do I, what do I really believe? Do I believe that God's good? Do I believe He's going to take care of me? Do I believe that I am a good leader? Do I believe that I have what it takes for the mission that He's given me? All sorts of beliefs that we get to go after and grow in together and find out which ones to discard and which ones to hold on to. And Steve's phenomenal. He believes in people more than they believe in themselves, and he'll give you opportunity to see that he's right, to see that it's true. But just his ability to encourage people is very special. His prophetic gifting is very high, and the love that he has and the opportunity that he presents. Um, he's really a great mentor. We're in the process right now because the school year is almost over of interviewing new students that are exiting second year, wanting to do third year. And so I am leading that right now for the team, just planning interviews, going over applications, that sort of thing. We also have a big Bethel Leaders Network conference this upcoming week with 500 leaders coming into Bethel, coming into Redding, California for a 3-day event. So that's taking place. And then the week after that, we have an Igniting Hope conference, Abounding Hope and Joy. It'll be the 3rd year in a row. And I think it's just going to be a wonderful time of being set free through the power of joy and proper thinking. Mm-hmm.
I remember there was a time, obviously there was always times need to look to God for the provision and all, but there was a time like maybe a gift was, we don't need no amounts, maybe but
Mm-hmm.
maybe we do, I don't know, but there was a time in maybe midway through or something that a large gift or someone been given and they could have split
Yeah.
between 20 people or something, but whatever,
Yeah.
went up and called out a name, and whose name was that?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there's a huge check in our garage right now. One of my roommates put it up there. And it's titled "From Your Generous Father," and it's my name, and it has $5,000 on it. And that was in first year. There was many financial testimonies, so many people, some that I knew, some that I didn't know, that really helped pave the way for me to be here because the school is very full and time consuming. And it's possible to work, but it's really, if you don't have to work, it's the best just to be able to stay in the environment and soak up everything that God has there. But it was right before Christmas break in first year, and I had very little money in my bank for a couple months leading up to that point, less than $100. And I was about to go home for Christmas, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And it was probably 2 days before Christmas break or a day before, so we were about to leave. I was about to leave, and they stopped school, and they said that an anonymous donor gave to the school $10,000 and told the staff give it to a student. There's not really any direction on who to give it to. Just pray and see who God highlights. And I thought it'd be cool if I got some of that money, God. But you can probably do it a different way. I know something will work out. But I was not expecting it really at all. There's 1,200 plus people in my class, maybe 14. I don't remember. I think 1,200 students. And so they called up one girl's name and they gave her $2,000. They called up another girl's name and gave her 3,000, and then they called my name and gave me $5,000. And that was pretty radical. It still is, just to think about it and to see how God's come through time and time again. Yeah, many testimonies of financial breakthrough, and just his goodness is being poured out. It's whatever he's calling you to do, wherever he's calling you to go, whatever plans he has for us. We're his kids, and it's up to him to make the way. He'll do it time and time again. We just say yes. He's already said yes. We come into agreement with that. And it's not always simple. It's not always easy. There's definitely moments of freaking out from my experience. I'm not always like a super Christian, like, yeah, God's going to do it. But we keep going to him. We keep seeking him. And he continues to come through. He really does.
There's so many gems and thoughts that I have. Like I always think of the hospital thing because I know of my ministry that, and field I'm helping a little bit now in the medical area is that like
Mm,
hospitals keep growing and more money keeps growing in there. And I think of John Lake and the hospitals being emptied. And when I've gone,
yeah.
a few people have got up and kind of walked out, or within a day or two or three, that
Mm,
not to live. But it's like you can't lose those desires and you can't let them go because there's so much. Do you have thoughts that you probably will go back to Africa, or what do you have any or missions outside the U.S. in the next couple of years, or
hmm
what are you thinking in that area?
At this point, I would love to go to Uganda twice a year, potentially more. It really depends. I don't know what my next year is going to look like. I don't know if I'm going to be still working here. Everything is very loose right now in my life. And so I would love to. I think if I stay at Bethel, if that's what is best for me at this time, if that's what God has directed me to do, I'm still open handed on it. I don't know. But if I do stay here, I believe 2 more times I'll go. I know they definitely want me to take another group back there in March next year if I'm around. And then I'd like to go on a trip, I think, maybe just a smaller group with some of my friends as well. I'm not connected to the school. So I think twice a year to Uganda is a good goal right now. That can definitely increase. I don't see it decreasing in the amount of times that I would want to go every year. And then there's other places too. Like there's not a place I don't want to go, to be honest with you. But I do have a very special place in my heart for Uganda and the people there. Hmm
I know. Man. Let's see. Whether I got anything else, or afterward, I'm go, oh yeah, I could ask about this, that, and the other thing. Obviously, we're like, you're late. you got your
Yeah.
what was it, your guard back or whatever. The guy just
hmm My gosh. Yeah. What a start to the trip. We had our bus get stuck, as classic fashion is, and it was on like the last day of the trip. But we didn't have to push it. We didn't get muddy. We were very close to the church that we had to walk to, so it worked out really well.
yeah, I remember the mud on that one trip, Masai Mari
Uh huh.
or whatever. Yeah,
That's what it
Masai.
was. Yeah, the tribe.
Oh man, that was
Many times and climbing up the
yeah.
mountain.
Oh man, pushing the vehicle instead of riding in it. How
Uh
many
huh.
times? 5 times.
We were near the
Um,
other side of Mount Elgon on this trip, because in
oh,
Kenya
you
we
went
were
to
near Mount Elgon. So there it goes into Uganda as well, and some of the churches we were in the foothills there, which is pretty
so you
neat.
didn't go over the mountain, but you went to the foothills?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Neat. Uh, what has been, I mean, obviously you can just simply say faith, heart, whatever. Do you feel is the biggest keys that have helped you in ministry and help you see some of these great moves of God in your life?
Yeah, I think believing that it's what I'm called to do is a huge part. Just having faith that it's a desire on my heart to see these things. It's God's desire as well. I can partner with Him in that. And it's not always easy. I remember when I first wanted to go to Uganda, I was doubting it probably 3 times very seriously if I was supposed to go. But God made it clear time and time again, no, this is the trip for you. It'll be great. I'm with you. Um, and so it's really just believing. I believe that I'm a righteous son of God, that He desires to work through me. He desires to show Himself strong through His people. And so if we just get in those opportunities where He has to show up and He has to move, He will.
Yeah.
Hmm
And I know, man, I'm sure I could pull out a bunch of other things. I'm thinking, would it be okay if I share your information, how people can reach out to you if they'd like to
Yeah,
talk to you?
absolutely.
Show this.
Yeah, if
So
anyone has any questions about the ministry or the work that God's doing, or if you have any prayer requests, I'd be happy to respond to the email.
yeah, so
Thank you
there
for
it is.
doing that.
Backus621 at
Hmm
gmail.com, right? So we'll leave
Yes.
it up for a minute or so people can grab that. Um, I think, I don't know. I mean, again, there's so many gems here. I hope my desire would be that, I don't know, and before a year goes out, and for sure maybe in 2 or 3 months, it'd be so great to have you back on and get like an update uh, of what's going on in your life, either what
Yeah.
Steve Backlund and Steve and Wendy Backlund, or you know, whatever ventures God's taken you on. You're writing a book, whatever it might be that it gets put on your heart.
Mm,
I don't. I, how would I want to offer it to you? How that you would like to close this out? I mean, if you want to prophesy, if you want to release words of knowledge, if you'd like to just pray for the people, whatever that you would like to do. And okay, we had that information up. They know how to reach out to you. And if somehow they
mm,
missed it, they can always reach out to me, and obviously I'll share it with them.
yeah.
Um, I saw your
Thank
mom
you.
was on here. Obviously, a couple of believers, but I saw your mom was on there. So,
Mm.
so cool.
Hey, Mom.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell one story with your. I have to tell. I'd like to tell one story with your mom. This is not me, but about me. But I was over there with that time we were visiting. I believe one of the times I went through, and there was a couple that for like I think it was 25 years. It was 15 or more, but I think it was 25 years. And she'll know. Maybe she'll put a note in here if you remember, Pat. Um, that they had been praying for years to speak by the Spirit of God,
Mm,
to pray in the Spirit and so forth. And they had been begging and they had cried out to God and nothing happened.
mm,
And they come over and in 15 minutes or something, they
mm.
were praying in the Spirit what they desired so long, all because of the wrong teaching. You got to wait. You got to wait. Well, no, you
Wow.
just act on what's yours. So your heritage of your family, your dad, Greg, your mom, Pat. I mean, there's an incredible, this is like you're like the Timothy here. It's an incredible heritage you're carrying on that is
Mm,
passed down. And I know your dad has done many things. Obviously, Pat, I knew Pat back in the
mm,
ministry program we were in training. And so, yeah, anyways, enough. How would you like to end
mm,
this tonight or close it out? That's
mm.
release that you do.
Yeah, thanks, FC. Yeah, I'm very blessed by my family for raising me in the Word, um, and praying for me when I was lost. Because I was probably 20 years old when I began to come to understand that I needed God and that He actually loved me and there was a better plan for my life than what I was on. And so I think the first thing I want to say is that if there's somebody in your life, somebody in your family that you're contending for in prayer, God's moving on your prayers. He's hearing your prayers, and He loves that person even more than you love them. Even my own grandpa, he was 88 years old when he came to Christ. 88 years old, and he thought that he was unworthy. He thought that he could not receive Christ, that God did not love him because of things that he did in the past. Um, and he was 88. I was in first year at school when he came to Christ. And then he began to speak about God everywhere. And my own life, I was 20 years old, messed up in college, doing drugs and other things. And God changed my life in a week. And my parents were praying for me. And so I'm saying if you're a praying parent or if you're whatever you are, whatever your relationship is to the person, um, you're doing a good work and your life is making a difference even if you don't see it right now. And God will come through. So I just speak to family members that are lost, to friends that are lost, and I just say, come home, come into the arms of Christ, come into the arms of the Father, and receive what the Lord has for you. I believe there's going to be a shift in this next week where God's going to encounter those that do not yet know Him in radical ways, either through somebody saying something or just through Him arriving in a dream and speaking to them and showing them the way. But yes, my first thing I want to do is just give faith, a faith boost to those that are praying for lost family members or friends, because every prayer that you pray, it's effective. Every single one is effective. And then the other thing, I think FC, I would just like to pray and just bless anybody who's listening, that the Lord would just ignite our hearts in new ways to be hungry and to pursue Him, and that there are no limits to what we can accomplish in our lives with God. And so, Lord, I just thank you for anybody that is hearing this prayer, God. For anyone that's drawn to this call, I thank you for the great work that FC does on Facebook regularly, Lord. I thank you for the words that he's spoken here, God, and the miracles that he's seen. And I just thank you for the hearts that are watching this call. that they would seek you, God. They would seek you with everything that they have, and that they would know you, and that you would speak to them the truth about who they are and the truth about the plans that you have for them, God. That just any lies that people are believing about you, about other people, about themselves, that they would be revealed right now, and they would be so clearly not from you that they can no longer attach faith to it. That it would just seem so foolish that that belief would be for them, or come out of their spirit, or come out of their minds. And so, God, I just thank you for proper thinking. I thank you for proper alignment in our walk with you. I thank you that our spiritual ears are being opened even greater, to hear your truth above everything else. God, that your truth would reign so strong, that anything that's not from you, God, is just so clear, so evident. And I thank you that we can pursue you with our whole hearts, pursue you with our whole minds. And I just thank you for the simple power of a yes. God, you can do wondrous things. The people that you chose in the Bible, man would maybe overlook, and the people even overlook their own selves, God, but you see something, you saw something. And so I thank you for anybody on this call that doesn't feel like they have any purpose, that doesn't feel like they have any destiny, that doesn't feel like they have any hope. God, that you make the path clear, you make your love evident for them, and you open up doors that no man can shut, God, that they can walk through with you. And so, Lord, I just bless our spiritual callings in Christ Jesus. And I thank you for the great things that you have, and say to anybody who has lost hope, to anybody who needs a turning point, this is the day of freedom. This is the day where the turning is available. Christ is turning to you. He says yes, his arms are open. We just get to run. We get to run after what he has for us. So, yes, I just bless you in Jesus' name. And FC, I thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Amen. Pouring out. I think we need one more testimony, because I think this is going to speak to someone here. But in the place you're living, you were getting, I don't know if kicked out's the right word, but you were basically, you and the ministers, believers there, were going to have to move, but God did something. So I think releasing that testimony is going to be powerful. So would you release what happened and how that went?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. So I've lived at this house. I moved here in second year, so I did second and third year. I've been here 3 years now. That's amazing. It's a fantastic house. The rent is the right price. The location is perfect. And probably 6 months ago or so, I'm a little off on the time, but very recently, me and my roommates were no longer going to be allowed to live here, because the owner of the house just decided it was time to sell it. And so he loved us as tenants, and we had great experience, but he was ready to get rid of the house and make some money. So my roommates and I, we had 3 months to search for a place, and we were looking diligently on the listings online, trying to find a spot. But housing in Reading is very scarce, because of the school, also because of a fire that happened a couple years ago. And so a lot of the landlords, like 90+% of them, really jack the price up way beyond what it's worth, and then put you in shared rooms that shouldn't be shared, that sort of thing. It's just not a good situation. And so my roommates and I were looking, could not find anything. About a week before it's time for us to get out at the agreed upon time, we reached out to our landlord. He's also a realtor in the area. And so we just shared with him where we're at, and that we don't know where we can go. Does he have any recommendations? I'm sure we could sleep on a friend's couch and we'd be okay. God would have had us covered. But he took that call, and he responded shortly after talking to his wife, and they decided that they weren't going to sell the house. They would let us continue to live there, because they like having us around. And so we're on an indefinite lease right now, at the house. He wants us to stay. I'm sure we could stay for years if we ended up needing to and wanting to do that. But God really covered for us, and the landlord, he hasn't raised the rent in a couple of years. Like, he could definitely be making a lot more off of this house than he is. And it's a real blessing to be here. So I'm very grateful for that.
The testimony. And so we think of Jesus, do it again, Lord, do it again. So if someone has a housing need or something going on in that area, we declare you're
Hmm.
going to see a really great breakthrough. And the money for people is so, yeah, let's sell the place. Well, but they haven't raised the rent, and they said, we want you to stay, or we're leaving it open, you could stay. So what a
Hmm.
testimony, all these others. And I know you have so many more in there. So maybe again in a couple months, sure love to have you back on again and get an
Yes.
updates of what's happening. I hope that I haven't seen you in a while, that this year is a year that I get to see you, whether it's east, west, middle, whatever.
Yeah.
And uh, I know your life has a lot that God is doing and a lot's about to come forth that people
Mm.
were going to want to hear. So, brother, have a great night. And thanks for
Yes.
all those who came on the broadcast, those who will catch the replay. And
Mm.
if you didn't get Patrick's information earlier, I'll be glad you can catch it, go back and see it, or just reach out and we'll get it to you. Okay. So, love to you, my
Thank you,
brother.
FC.
And
Love you. Thank you for the opportunity.
and an incredible night to you. And you don't have to do anything. Just hang out a second. So
Okay.
good night, everyone.